The tips were shit tonight. Maya Rodriguez counted the crumpled bills for the third time, hoping the math would somehow change. $23.47 after working the dinner rush for 6 hours straight. Not even enough to cover the gas she'd burned driving her battered Honda Civic across half of Miami. She sat in the parking lot of Stefano's Pizza, engine idling because turning it off meant risking it wouldn't start again. The check engine light had been on for 2 months. The passenger side window was stuck half down, and the odometer had just rolled over 230,000 miles, but it was hers. Paid in cash 3 years ago, when she'd aged out of the foster system at 18 with exactly $900 to her name. 21 now, and she was still fighting the same battles. Rent was 8 days overdue. Her landlord, Mrs. Chin, had been patient, but patience had limits. Maya needed $320 by Friday or she'd be sleeping in this car. The math was brutal and unforgiving. Tips like tonight meant she'd need at least 3 more shifts just to break even. Her phone buzzed. Another delivery. She accepted before reading the details. Beggars couldn't be choosers. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The address made her stomach drop. Star Island. The artificial archipelago where Miami's wealthiest built their mansions behind gates and security cameras. She'd delivered there exactly twice before. Once, she'd gotten a $5 tip on a $200 order. The second time, security wouldn't even let her pass the guardhouse. Rich people were the worst tippers. They had money to burn but somehow forgot that the person bringing their food was surviving on those small bills. Maya almost canceled. But $21.47 wasn't going to become $320 by itself. She pulled out of the parking lot, the Civic's engine making that concern rattle it developed whenever she went above 40. The causeway stretched ahead, palm trees lining the route, their fronds rustling in the warm October wind. Miami never really got cold, just less hot. Tonight was pleasant, mid-70s, with the kind of breeze that smelled like salt water and possibility. The address belonged to a property on the northern tip of the island. The GPS directed her through increasingly exclusive streets until she reached a wall. Not a fence, a wall. 12 feet of pale stone topped with security cameras spaced every 20 feet. The gate was solid steel with an intercom system that probably cost more than her car. She pressed the button and waited. Nothing. She pressed again, holding it longer. Static crackled, then a male voice, curt and professional. Yes? Pizza delivery for Castellano? Silence stretched long enough that Maya thought she'd been disconnected. Then the gate began to slide open with the smooth, expensive whisper of well-maintained machinery. The driveway was crushed white stone that crunched under her tires. It curved through manicured gardens that looked like they required a full-time staff. Spotlights positioned in the landscaping illuminated everything with the kind of perfect lighting you saw in magazines. The house appeared around the final curve. House was the wrong word. Estate, mansion, compound. It was 3 stories of Mediterranean architecture, all arched windows and terracotta roof tiles, probably 8,000 square feet at minimum, maybe 10. The kind of place that had a name instead of just an address. Maya parked in the circular drive, grabbed the insulated delivery bag, and walked toward the front entrance. Her worn sneakers looked obscene against the pristine stone walkway. The pizza was getting cold. She'd taken too long staring at the ridiculous display of wealth. She rang the doorbell. Chimes echoed inside. Some classical melody she didn't recognize. The door opened to reveal a man in his 50s wearing a suit that probably cost 3 months of her rent. His eyes swept over her with the kind of assessment that made her straighten her spine defensively. "Delivery," she said, lifting the bag slightly. "The kitchen entrance is around the back." He started to close the door. "I was told to come to the front." She wasn't even sure why she argued. Rich people loved making service workers use separate entrances, as if being poor was contagious. "Mr. Castellano is occupied. Leave it with me." Maya pulled out the receipt. Total is $43.50, plus tip. She added the last part with probably more attitude than was wise, but 8 days from eviction made her reckless. The man's expression didn't change. He pulled out his wallet with the slow, deliberate movements of someone who controlled everything around him and extracted 2 20s and a 10. He took the pizza, handed her the cash, and closed the door before she could offer change. $5.50. On a mansion that probably had more bathrooms than she'd lived in apartments. Maya stood there for a moment, the rejection and dismissal settling into her bones alongside all the other small humiliations that came with being invisible to people like this. Then she turned and walked back to her car. She was halfway down the driveway when she heard it, splashing. Then a child's scream, high and terrified, cut off mid-breath by water. Maya's foot hit the brake hard enough that the Civic's worn pads squealed. The sound came from the left side of the property, beyond the main house. She could see the glow of pool lights reflecting off palm fronds. Another splash, more thrashing, then silence. She was out of the car before conscious thought caught up. Her body remembered lifeguard training from that one summer when she was 16, working at the public pool because it paid $2 more than minimum wage. She'd saved 3 kids that season from various levels of distress. Never anything serious. But she remembered the training, remembering that silence was worse than screaming. Silence meant submersion, meant lungs filling with water, meant seconds counting down to brain damage or death. Maya ran across the immaculate lawn, her sneakers leaving divots in grass that probably required daily maintenance. The pool area opened before her, an enormous infinity-edge design that seemed to spill directly into Biscayne Bay beyond. Underwater lights turned the water an ethereal blue-green, and at the bottom of the deep end, she could see a small shape, a child, maybe 6 or 7 years old, not moving. She didn't hesitate. Didn't think about the expensive phone in her pocket or the fact that she was trespassing on property that probably had lawyers on retainer specifically to deal with people like her. She kicked off her sneakers, took 3 running steps, and dove. The water was warm, heated. Of course it was heated. Rich people didn't swim in anything that might be uncomfortable. Maya's eyes burned from the chlorine as she kicked downward, arms pulling her toward the small figure. He was wearing swim trunks with cartoon characters on them. Dinosaurs, she registered distantly. His eyes were closed. He wasn't struggling. She grabbed him under the arms and kicked upward, adrenaline making her movements powerful despite her exhaustion. They broke the surface together. The child was dead weight in her arms. She towed him to the shallow end, struggling to keep his head above water, and dragged him onto the pool deck. He wasn't breathing. Maya's hands moved on autopilot, positioning his head, checking his airway. Her fingers touched his neck, searching for a pulse. There, weak, thready, but there. She tilted his head back, pinched his nose, and gave him 2 rescue breaths. His small chest rose and fell with the air she forced into his lungs. She started compressions, 30 of them, her hands positioned over his sternum, careful not to press too hard. 6 years old, maybe 7. He was small for his age, fragile-looking in the way children sometimes are before growth spurts hit. She gave him 2 more breaths, more compressions. Her arms were shaking, from effort, from adrenaline, from the terror of having this child's life literally in her hands. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on, kid. Breathe." 2 more breaths. The child convulsed. Water erupted from his mouth and nose as he coughed violently. Maya rolled him onto his side, supporting his head as he vomited pool water onto the expensive tiles. He gasped, coughed again, and sucked in a desperate breath that sounded like the most beautiful thing she'd ever heard. His eyes opened, light brown, almost amber, confused and frightened. He looked up at her, and recognition flickered across his small face. Not of her specifically, but of the fact that she'd helped him, saved him. "You're okay," Maya said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the way her hands trembled. "You're going to be okay. Just keep breathing." "Luca!" The voice came from behind her, sharp with panic. Maya turned to see a man running toward them from the house. Not the butler or whoever had answered the door. This man was younger, maybe mid-30s, tall and powerfully built. He wore dress pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, like he'd been interrupted in the middle of something important. He dropped to his knees beside them, and Maya saw his face properly for the first time. Handsome in that harsh, angular way that spoke of expensive genetics or excellent surgeons or both. Dark hair cut precisely, strong jaw, and eyes the same unusual light brown as the child's. His hands were shaking as he reached for the boy. "Luca, can you hear me? Papa." The word came out rough, the child's throat obviously raw from the water and vomiting, but he was conscious, alert. His color was already improving from the gray-blue he'd been when she pulled him out. The man Papa looked up at Maya. His expression was unreadable, caught somewhere between relief and something darker, something that looked like fury barely contained. "What happened?" "I heard splashing. He was at the bottom of the pool. He wasn't breathing when I got him out." Maya was still kneeling on the wet tiles, her delivery uniform soaked through, hair plastered to her face. "He needs to go to the hospital. Sometimes secondary drowning can occur hours after." "I know what secondary drowning is." The man's voice was cold, controlled. He lifted Luca into his arms with practiced ease, standing in one fluid motion. The child wrapped his arms around his father's neck and buried his face against his shoulder. For a moment, they stood like that. Father and son. Maya felt like she was intruding on something private, something raw. Then the man's eyes found hers again, and she saw calculation replacing emotion. Assessment. The same kind of sizing up she'd gotten from the door guy, but more intense. More dangerous. Who are you? Maya Rodriguez. I was delivering pizza. I heard him and She gestured helplessly at the pool. You jumped in. He wasn't breathing. Something flickered across the man's face, an emotion too quick to identify. He turned toward the house, still holding Luca against his chest. Mateo, he called out, voice sharp as a blade. Get the car. We're going to Mercy General. Now. The butler appeared almost instantly, moving with surprising speed for someone his age. Other men materialized from the house security, Maya realized. 3 of them, all wearing dark suits that didn't quite hide the bulk of shoulder holsters. Boss. The perimeter was clear. We didn't see. Not now, Rico. The man's voice cut through the explanation like a knife. Luca comes first. We discuss failures later. Boss. The word registered in Maya's exhausted brain, not just rich. Something else. Something that made men with guns call him boss and jump at his commands. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the pool area, tires crunching on the gravel path. The man boss carried Luca toward it, then paused and looked back at Maya. She was still kneeling on the pool deck, dripping and shivering despite the warm night. You're coming with us, he said. It wasn't a question. I should probably go. I have other deliveries. You're coming. The words were flat, absolute, the voice of someone who didn't expect to be contradicted. My son needs a medical evaluation. You performed the rescue. The doctors will need your account of the incident. Maya wanted to argue. Every instinct told her that getting into a car with this man was a bad idea, but Luca was looking at her over his father's shoulder, those amber eyes wide and trusting, and she couldn't make herself walk away. She stood, water streaming from her clothes, and followed them to the SUV. The interior was luxury she'd only seen in movies, leather seats that probably cost more than her yearly income. The man settled Luca into his lap, keeping the boy close. Maya slid into the seat behind them, acutely aware of how she was dripping all over the pristine upholstery. Mateo was driving, another security guy in the passenger seat. The SUV moved fast but smooth, clearly exceeding speed limits but with the confidence of someone who didn't expect to be stopped. They probably wouldn't be. Rich people had different rules. How long was he under? The man's voice broke the silence. He was looking at her in the rearview mirror. I don't know. Maybe a minute before I got to him? Another 30 seconds to get him out. 90 seconds total. Maybe. I'm not sure. His jaw tightened. 90 seconds without oxygen. Long enough to cause damage. Not long enough for guaranteed death, but too long for comfort. Maya had done her research during that summer of lifeguarding. She knew the statistics. He's going to be okay, she said, and hated how uncertain it sounded. Yes. The single word was absolute. A command, not a prediction. As if he could simply demand reality bend to his will. He will be. Luca coughed again, a wet, rattling sound. His father's arms tightened around him, and Maya saw the knuckles go white with pressure. Controlled violence barely contained. This was a man used to fixing problems, used to eliminating threats. But you couldn't threaten water, couldn't intimidate away near drowning. The vulnerability in that moment was profound and terrifying. They pulled up to Mercy General's emergency entrance. The security guy was out first, opening doors, creating a protective corridor. The man carried Luca through automatic doors that whisked open at their approach. Maya followed, still dripping, wondering what exactly she'd gotten herself into. A nurse appeared immediately. Mr. Castellano. Not a question. She knew him. What happened? Pool accident, near drowning. Rescue performed by... He glanced back at Maya, and she realized he'd already forgotten her name, or hadn't bothered to remember it. Maya Rodriguez. Miss Rodriguez. Submersion time is approximately 90 seconds. He's conscious now. Coughing up water. Breathing independently. The nurse's professional mask slipped for just a second, revealing concern. Then it was back in place. Exam room 3. Doctor. Patterson is already here. They moved through the ER with the efficiency of people who'd done this before. Maya trailed behind, feeling increasingly out of place. This wasn't the kind of emergency room she'd visited before. No crowded waiting room, no triage nurse asking about insurance. They went straight through, past rooms full of other patients who'd been waiting hours. Money bought different treatment. Maya had always known that intellectually, but seeing it in action was something else entirely. Exam room 3 was private, spacious, with equipment that looked brand new. A doctor appeared, almost immediately young, competent-looking, with the kind of expensive watch that signaled either family money or crushing student loans. Probably the former, given the hospital's zip code. "Luca, let's take a look at you." The doctor's voice was calm, professional. He examined the boy with practiced efficiency, while the father watched with an intensity that made Maya think of predators tracking prey. "Lungs are clear. Heart rate is elevated, but that's expected. Oxygen saturation is 97%. That's excellent." The doctor looked up at Mr. Castellano. "We'll want to monitor him for the next few hours. Check for any signs of secondary drowning or complications. But preliminary assessment is very positive, because of her." Luca's voice was quiet but clear. He was pointing at Maya. "She saved me, Papa." All eyes turned toward her. Maya shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware of how she must look. Soaked, bedraggled, out of place among the expensive suits and medical professionals. "Yes, Mr. Castellano said quietly. She did. The way he looked at her in that moment made something in Maya's chest tighten. It wasn't gratitude exactly. It was something more complicated, more dangerous. Like she'd crossed some invisible line and couldn't go back. "I should go," Maya said again. "My car is still at your house. Matteo will arrange for it to be brought here." "Mr. Castellano didn't look away from her face. "You're not going anywhere until we're certain Luca is stable. You performed the rescue. That makes you part of this." "Part of what?" Maya wanted to ask. But something in the man's expression told her she wouldn't like the answer. She sank into a chair in the corner, water still dripping from her clothes, and watched as they transferred Luca to a private room upstairs. The kind with a view and a couch and furniture that didn't look like it came from a medical supply catalog. Mr. Castellano stayed by his son's bedside, one hand resting on the boy's small shoulder. Protective, possessive. The security team positioned themselves at the door, not casually, but strategically, like they were guarding something valuable, which, Maya realized, they were. She'd saved the wrong kid, or the right kid, depending on how you looked at it, but definitely a kid whose father had money, power, and the kind of presence that made grown men with guns nervous. The attending physician came in periodically to check vitals. Each time, Mr. Castellano's questions were sharp, specific, revealing a knowledge of medicine that seemed incongruous with his obvious business background. Or maybe not. Maybe when you had this much money, you educated yourself on everything that could threaten what you cared about. Around midnight, Luca finally fell asleep. The doctor assured them the worst danger had passed. No signs of complications. Breathing was clear. Heart rate had normalized. He'd need monitoring for another day, but he was going to be fine. Mr. Castellano stood then, unfolding from the chair beside the bed with the kind of controlled grace that spoke of either athletic training or something darker. He gestured toward the hallway, and Maya found herself following him out. The corridor was empty except for two of his security team, positioned at strategic points, one at the elevator, one near the nurse's station. They weren't subtle about it. "Thank you." The words came out stiff, like he wasn't used to saying them. "For saving my son." Anyone would have done the same thing. No. His voice was flat, certain. They wouldn't have. Most people would have called for help, waited for someone else to handle it. "You dove in." Maya shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I used to be a lifeguard. That explains the technique." He studied her face with the same intensity he'd used earlier. "Assessment. Calculation. What's a former lifeguard delivering pizza? Paying rent." The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. "Honest answer." "You asked." "Most people lie when I ask questions. Try to tell me what they think I want to hear. I'm too tired to lie." It was true. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving her hollowed out and exhausted. Her clothes were still damp, cold now against her skin. She probably looked like hell. "Mr. Castellano pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. "Your car is being delivered here. Should arrive in 20 minutes. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." He put the phone away. "How much were you making tonight? In tips?" Maya blinked at the non sequitur. "Why? How much?" $23. "Before your delivery." His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Judgment, maybe. Or calculation. And you need how much for rent? That's really none of your 300? 4? Maya's jaw tightened. 320. But I'm not. He pulled out his wallet, expensive leather, probably Italian, and extracted bills. Not 20s, not 50s, hundreds. He counted out 35 of them and held them out to her. $3,500. Maya stared at the money like it might bite her. I can't accept that. It's not charity. It's payment for services rendered. You saved my son's life. That's worth considerably more than $3,500. I was just doing the right thing. You don't owe me. Yes, I do. The words were hard, final. Take it. Maya didn't move. $3,500 would solve everything. Rent, car repairs, food that wasn't ramen, maybe even a security deposit on a better apartment. But accepting this much money from a stranger felt wrong, felt dangerous. Why are you being so weird about this? Mr. Castellano's voice held a hint of frustration. Most people would have taken the money already. Most people aren't used to rich guys throwing thousands of dollars at them. Get used to it. He reached out and took her hand, not toe, roughly, but firmly, and pressed the bills into her palm. His skin was warm against hers, and Maya felt calluses that didn't match his expensive clothes. Whatever this man did for a living, it wasn't just signing papers. You're going to be seeing a lot more of me. What's that supposed to mean? It means you saved my son. That creates a debt. And I always pay my debts. He released her hand, and Maya found herself clutching the money reflexively. It also means you're now under my protection. I don't need protection. His smile was sharp, humorless. You jumped into my pool and saved the heir to a $50 billion empire. Trust me, Miss Rodriguez. You need protection whether you want it or not. The words settled over her like a weight. 50 billion. The number was almost meaningless, too large to comprehend. But the way he said it made it clear. This wasn't just about money. This was about something bigger, something dangerous. Who are you? Maya whispered. Dante Castellano. He said it like the name should mean something, like she should recognize it. When her expression remained blank, something almost like amusement crossed his face. You really don't know. Should I? Probably better that you don't. He glanced back toward Luca's room. But you will, soon enough. An elevator dinged down the hall. Matteo appeared, moving with that same efficient purpose. The vehicle has arrived, boss. Good. Dante turned back to Maya. Go home, get dry, get some sleep. We'll talk tomorrow. Tomorrow? I'll send a car at 10. I work tomorrow. Call in sick. I can't just... Miss Rodriguez. His voice dropped into something darker, more commanding. You saved my son tonight. That makes you important. And important people in my world receive certain considerations. A car will arrive at 10. Be ready. He walked away before she could argue, disappearing back into Luca's room. Matteo remained, waiting with that patient stillness that suggested he'd wait all night if necessary. Maya looked down at the money in her hands. $3,500 in crisp $100 bills. Enough to change everything, or enough to buy her way into something she didn't understand. She thought about refusing it, putting the money on the nurse's station desk and walking away, going back to her life of struggling deliveries and overdue rent. But she couldn't, because 21 years of poverty had taught her that pride was expensive, and she couldn't afford it. Maya followed Matteo to the elevator. Her Honda Civic was waiting in the parking garage, looking even more pathetic surrounded by luxury vehicles. She climbed in, started the engine on the first try, small miracles, and drove home through empty streets. The money sat on her passenger seat, mocking her with its weight and possibility. She'd saved a child tonight. A good thing, unambiguously positive, but something about the way Dante Castellano had looked at her, the way he'd said she was under his protection now, made her feel like she'd stepped into a trap that looked like salvation but might cost her everything she'd fought to build. Maya parked in front of her apartment building, 3rd floor, Unit 312, 700 square feet of barely affordable survival. She climbed the stairs, still in her damp uniform, clutching $3,500 that might save her or might destroy her. She didn't know which, but she knew one thing with certainty. Tomorrow at 10, there will be a car waiting, and despite every instinct screaming at her to run, Maya knew she would get in it. Maya didn't sleep. She sat on her second-hand couch, the money spread across her coffee table like evidence of a crime, and watched the sunrise paint Miami pink and gold through her window. At 6 a.m., she texted her manager at Stefano's, "Family emergency, can't come in today." It wasn't entirely a lie. She was having an emergency, even if it wasn't family-related. At 7, she showered, scrubbing the chlorine smell from her hair and skin. The cuts on her knees from the pool deck stung under the hot water. Small prices for saving a life. At 8, she stared at her closet. What did you wear when a billionaire sent a car for you? Everything she owned was thrift store finds and clearance rack purchases, jeans with worn knees, t-shirts that had seen too many wash cycles. The one dress she owned was from a funeral 3 years ago. She settled on her least faded jeans and a simple black top. No jewelry. She didn't own any worth wearing. Her hair went into a ponytail. Minimal makeup. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw exactly what she was. A broke 21-year-old playing dress-up for rich people. At 9:30, she called Mrs. Chen and arranged to drop off rent. The landlord's relief was audible through the phone. Maya felt the weight lift slightly from her shoulders. One problem solved. About 1,000 more waiting. At 9:55, she locked her apartment door and walked downstairs. The car was already there. Not an SUV this time. A sedan. Still black. Still expensive. Still screaming money and power. The windows were tinted dark enough that she couldn't see inside. The driver emerged as she approached. Not Matteo. A younger man, maybe 30, with the same controlled competence she'd seen in Dante's security team. He wore a suit that fit too well to hide anything, including the gun she could see outlined at his hip. "Miss Rodriguez?" "That's me." He opened the rear door. "Mr. Castellano is waiting." Maya slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The interior smelled like expensive cologne and something else. Something darker. Power, maybe. Or danger. They were probably the same thing in Dante Castellano's world. The drive took 20 minutes through morning traffic. They headed back toward Star Island, but instead of turning toward the mansion, they continued to a building she'd never noticed before. Modern glass and steel, maybe. 15 stories, with security that made the mansion look casual by comparison. The driver pulled into an underground garage. More men in suits, more guns. They checked the car, checked her ID, checked something on a tablet before waving them through. The elevator required a keycard and a code. They rode up in silence, Maya's reflection staring back at her from mirrored walls. She looked small, young, out of place. The doors opened directly into an office. Not a hallway with doors leading to offices. Just one enormous space that occupied the entire 15th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a 360-degree view of Miami. The Atlantic stretched blue and endless to the east. The city sprawled west, all glass towers and urban sprawl. Dante stood by the western windows, phone to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. He wore a charcoal suit today, perfectly tailored, the kind that cost more than cars. When he saw her, he ended the call mid-sentence and crossed the space in long strides. "Miss Rodriguez, thank you for coming. Did I have a choice?" The corner of his mouth twitched. "Not really, but I appreciate the courtesy of you pretending otherwise." He gestured toward a seating area. Leather couches, modern art on the walls, a coffee table made of what looked like a single slab of marble. "Sit, please." Maya sat, perching on the edge of the couch like she might need to run. Dante took the chair across from her, studying her face with that same intense assessment from last night. "Luca's doing well," he said. "Doctor cleared him this morning. No complications. He'll make a full recovery." Relief flooded through her. "That's good. That's really good. Because of you." He leaned forward slightly. "I meant what I said last night. You saved my son's life. That creates a debt. You already paid me, way more than money isn't payment, it's a gesture, an apology for the inconvenience." His eyes never left her face. "The actual debt is more complicated." Something cold settled in Maya's stomach. "What kind of complicated?" "The kind where I need to know everything about you. Where you live, where you work, who you associate with, any enemies you might have, any threats in your life. That's insane. You can't just, 'I can, and I will.'" His voice remained calm but steel underneath. "You jumped into my pool and saved my son. That was captured on security cameras. Those cameras feed to servers that are monitored by people who work for me, but technology isn't perfect. Systems get hacked. Information gets leaked. And there are people in this city who would pay significant money to know that someone pulled Luca Castellano from the bottom of a swimming pool. The way he said it made the hairs on Maya's neck stand up. Why would anyone care? Because it means there was a vulnerability. A moment when my security failed. A moment when my son was in danger. He stood, walking to the windows. And vulnerabilities are exploited. That's how this world works. What world? You keep talking like Maya stopped, pieces clicking together. The security, the guards with guns, the way the hospital staff knew his name, the $50 billion empire comment. Oh. Yes. Oh. Dante turned back to face her. You're a smart woman, Miss Rodriguez. I can see you connecting the dots. You're Mafia. I prefer businessman with complicated supply chains. The words were dry, almost amused. But yes, essentially, the Castellano family has operated in Miami for 3 generations. Legitimate businesses, mostly. Real estate development, import-export, hospitality industry. But we have connections, arrangements, partnerships with less savory elements. Maya's hands tightened on her knees. And you're telling me this why? Because you need to understand what you've become part of. He moved back toward her, and Maya forced herself not to lean away. The moment you pulled Luca from that pool, you became visible. People watch. My family. Rivals. Law enforcement. Journalists looking for the next big story. And now you're in that spotlight whether you want to be or not. So what? I'm supposed to just accept that my life is different now? That I need protection from people I've never met because I did the right thing? Yes. The simple certainty of it took her breath away. That's not fair. No, it's not. Something almost like sympathy crossed his face. But fair doesn't matter. Reality matters. And the reality is that you saved my son, which makes you important to me, which makes you interesting to my enemies. Maya stood, needing to move, needing space. She walked to the windows, looking down at the city 15 stories below. From up here, everything looked small. Manageable. Like the kind of problems you could solve with enough money or enough force. I can't just abandon my life, she said quietly. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to let me protect it. How? Security detail. Discreet, but present. Upgrades to your apartment. New locks, cameras, reinforced door. A panic button linked directly to my team. He moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something expensive and subtle. And I'd like you to consider relocating. Relocating where? Somewhere more secure. I have properties throughout the city. You could choose, no. The word came out harder than she intended. No, I'm not moving into some place you own, becoming some kept woman. That's not what I'm suggesting, isn't it? Maya turned to face him. You want to control where I live, how I move through the world, who I see. That's not protection. That's possession. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Dante's jaw tightened. For a moment, she saw the man beneath the businessman. Someone used to getting what he wanted. Someone who didn't tolerate being told no. Then his expression smoothed out, control reasserting itself. You're right, he said quietly. I'm approaching this wrong. Let me try again. He gestured back toward the seating area. Please. 5 more minutes. Maya hesitated, then returned to the couch. Dante sat across from her again, but this time his posture was less commanding, more open. I have enemies, he began. Real ones. People who would kill me and my son if they thought they could get away with it. Rival families, former business partners I had to cut loose. Men I've put in prison through legal testimony. The list is extensive and constantly evolving. That sounds like a problem. It was. Until last night. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Now it's your problem too. Because those enemies saw the same security footage I did. They saw you save Luca. They saw me carry him to the hospital with you in tow. They saw me hand you enough money to make it clear you're important. So what, they'll come after me to get to you? Possibly. Probably. He didn't sugarcoat it. Or they'll approach you, try to use you as an intelligence source. Offer you money for information about my routines, my security, my vulnerabilities. And when you refuse, because I think you would refuse, they'll escalate. The weight of it settled over Maya like a physical thing. This is insane. Yes. I just wanted to deliver pizza and pay my rent. I know. And now I'm what? A target? Because I saved a kid from drowning? Yes. Dante's expression was grave. And I'm sorry for that. Genuinely. But I can't change it. I can only mitigate it. Let me protect you, Maya. Not as possession. As a responsibility. She wanted to refuse. Wanted to walk out of this office and back to her small, safe, ordinary life. But that life was gone, wasn't it? The moment she'd heard Luca splash into that pool, she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. What would this protection look like? She asked finally. Relief flickered across Dante's face, quickly hidden. Security detail. 2 men, rotating shifts. They'll maintain distance unless there's a threat. You won't even know they're there most of the time. I'll know. Yes, you'll know. But they won't interfere with your life. You can still work, still see friends, still do whatever you want. They're just insurance. What about my apartment? Security upgrades tonight. New door, new locks, camera system. All controlled by you, not me. It's your space. I'm just making it safer. Maya studied his face, looking for the angle. There was always an angle with people like this. And in return? In return, you let me do what I need to do to keep you safe. You check in periodically so I know you're okay. And, he paused, seeming to weigh his next words. And you let Luca thank you properly. I don't need thanks. He needs to give it. Dante's voice softened. He's 7 years old, Maya. He almost died. He knows you saved him. He's been asking about you since he woke up this morning, asking if you're okay, if you got home safe, if he'll see you again. The image of those amber eyes looking up at her on the pool deck surfaced in Maya's mind. Trust and fear and gratitude all mixed together in a child's face. 1 visit, she said. 1 visit to start. After that, we'll see. And the security detail starts when? About 3 hours ago. At her sharp look, Dante's expression turned apologetic. I'm sorry, but I couldn't risk the gap between last night and this conversation. Rico and James have been watching your apartment since you arrived home. They'll introduce themselves properly once we're done here. Maya should have been angry, should have felt violated, but mostly she just felt tired. You really don't take no for an answer, do you? Not when it comes to protecting the people I'm responsible for. I'm not one of your people. Yes, you are. The certainty in his voice was absolute. The moment you pulled Luca from that pool, you became one of mine. That's not negotiable. But how we handle this relationship, whether it's adversarial or cooperative, that part's up to you. Maya looked at him for a long moment. Dante Castellano, businessman, mafia boss, father, a man who commanded rooms and men and probably entire sections of Miami's economy. A man who'd just offered her protection like it was a gift and a chain simultaneously. Okay, she said finally. But I have conditions. Name them. I keep working. I don't care how dangerous you think it is. I work too hard to get that job to just abandon it. Agreed. Though I'd like your security detail to check your delivery routes each shift. Fine. Second condition, you don't interfere with my personal life. If I want to date someone, go out with friends, whatever, that's my business. Agreed, with one caveat. If the person you're dating poses a security risk, we'll discuss it. Discuss, not dictate. Discuss, he confirmed. Third condition, I want to understand what I'm involved in. You said I'm part of this now. Fine. But I'm not going in blind. You want me to accept protection. I need to understand what I'm being protected from. Dante's expression grew serious. That's a dangerous request. More dangerous than being an ignorant target? He considered this. Point taken. But there are limits to what I can share. Some things are need to know for your own safety. Then give me the outline, the broad strokes, who your enemies are, what they want, why they'd care about some pizza delivery girl. You're not just some pizza delivery girl anymore. Then help me understand what I am. Dante stood, walked to his desk, and returned with a tablet. He sat beside her on the couch, not close enough to crowd her, but near enough to share the screen, and opened a file. The Castellano family operates primarily in South Florida, he began. My grandfather started with import-export in the 1950s. Legitimate business, but with connections to less legitimate enterprises. My father expanded into real estate development and hospitality. I've been working to legitimize everything, but old connections don't just disappear. He swiped through images. Men in suits, buildings, organizational charts that looked like corporate structures but with military precision. Our primary rivals are the Moretti family out of New York and the Vega cartel operating between here and Colombia. The Morettis want our territory. Vegas wants our distribution networks. We've managed a careful balance for the past decade, but it's fragile. Distribution of what? Whatever needs distribution. Legal goods, mostly. But the networks that move legal goods can move illegal ones just as easily. We try to avoid direct involvement, but willful ignorance only goes so far. Maya processed this. So you're basically saying you're criminals trying to go legit but can't fully commit. That's one way to phrase it. His tone was dry. I prefer to think of it as managing a transition across generations. My grandfather's world operated on different rules. I'm trying to build something sustainable for Luca. Something that won't get him killed. By staying involved with the same people who might kill him? By maintaining enough power to protect him while building legitimate alternatives. Dante's voice hardened. You don't just walk away from this life, Maya. People who try end up dead. You have to transition carefully, strategically, always maintaining enough strength that no one sees an opening. He swiped to another image. A man in his 50s, silver-haired and distinguished-looking. Marco Vega, head of the Vega cartel. He's been pressuring us to provide protection for his shipments through our ports. I've refused. That makes us rivals instead of partners. Another swipe. A younger man, maybe 40, with cold eyes and an expensive suit. Anthony Moretti. He sees Miami as rightfully belonging to New York interests. He's been acquiring properties, bribing officials, slowly building infrastructure. Eventually, he'll make a move to take over our operations. And these men would come after me because I saved your son? They'd come after you because you represent something they can exploit, a vulnerability, a way to gather intelligence, or simply a message if they can hurt someone under my protection. It shows I'm weakening. The weight of it pressed down on Maya's chest. I'm bait. No, you're protected. Dante turned off the tablet. There's a difference. Bait is expendable. You're not. Why not? You don't know me. I'm nobody. You saved my son. The words were simple, but the emotion underneath was complex. That makes you somebody. In my world, loyalty and debts are currency. You demonstrated both last night, and beyond that, he paused, studying her face. You didn't hesitate. Didn't calculate the risk or weigh the consequences. You just acted. That kind of courage is rare. Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks. I was a lifeguard. It was just training. Training gets you to the pool. Courage gets you into the water. Dante stood, offering her his hand. Come on. There's someone waiting to see you. Maya took his hand, warm, calloused, strong, and let him pull her to her feet. They rode the elevator down 3 floors to what appeared to be a residential level. The doors opened to a hallway with plush carpeting and art on the walls. Dante led her to a door at the end, knocked twice, and opened it without waiting for a response. The apartment inside was enormous. Open floor plan, modern furniture, toys scattered across the hardwood floors, and sitting on a couch that dwarfed his small frame, coloring in a book with serious concentration, was Luca. He looked up when they entered, and his face transformed. Maya. He launched himself off the couch and ran toward her. Maya dropped to one knee automatically, catching him as he crashed into her with the full force of a 7-year-old's enthusiasm. His small arms wrapped around her neck, squeezing tight. You came, he said into her shoulder. Papa said you would, but I wasn't sure. Of course I came. Maya's throat tightened unexpectedly. How are you feeling? Luca pulled back to look at her. Better. My throat hurts a little, but the doctor said that's normal. She said you saved my life. You had a scary accident, but you're okay now. Because of you. His amber eyes were serious, older than his years. Papa says I owe you everything. He says you didn't even think about it. You just jumped in. Maya glanced up at Dante, who was watching them with an expression she couldn't read. Your papa talks a lot. He does when he's worried. Luca took her hand and pulled her toward the couch. Come see what I'm drawing. It's you. The coloring book page showed a rough stick figure with brown hair standing next to a blue rectangle that was probably supposed to be a pool. Another stick figure with yellow hair floated in the water. It was childish and simple and somehow completely devastating. That's beautiful. Maya managed. You can have it when I'm done. Luca climbed back onto the couch and patted the cushion beside him. Will you color with me? Maya looked at Dante, who nodded permission. She sat, and Luca immediately scooted closer, pressing against her side like she was something solid and safe. He handed her a purple crayon. Purple's my favorite color, he announced. What's yours? Green, I think. Like emeralds or like grass. Like ocean water when the sun hits it right. Luca considered this seriously. That's a good green. He went back to coloring, his small tongue poking out in concentration. Maya colored beside him, hyper-aware of Dante standing nearby, watching. This was dangerous, she realized. Not just the Mafia stuff or the security threats. This, getting attached to a child who wasn't hers, letting herself feel responsible for him. But Luca's weight against her side was warm and real. And when he laughed at something she said, the sound was pure and uncomplicated. For 20 minutes, Maya forgot about debts and protection and territories. She just colored with a kid who almost died and seemed determined to make up for it with enthusiasm. A woman appeared in the doorway, older, maybe 60, with kind eyes and the bearing of someone who'd raised children before. Luca, mijo, time for lunch. But Maya just got here. Luca's protest was automatic. And Maya will visit again, Dante said firmly. Sophia's made your favorite, mac and cheese. The good kind with 3 cheeses? Is there any other kind? Luca sighed dramatically but climbed off the couch. He turned to Maya and wrapped his arms around her again. Promise you'll come back? Maya looked at Dante, who nodded once. I promise. Okay. Luca released her and ran toward the kitchen, where the smell of cheese and pasta was already wafting. Sophia, the housekeeper, Maya assumed, smiled at her. Thank you, she said quietly, for saving our boy. Then she was gone, following Luca's excited chatter about which crayon colors were scientifically proven to be the best. Dante led Maya back to the elevator. They rode up in silence to the 15th floor, to his office with its impossible views and heavy furniture. He walked to the windows again, hands in his pockets, shoulders tight with tension. He doesn't know, Dante said finally, about what I do, who I am. He thinks I'm a businessman, real estate developer. He doesn't understand why we have security, why we can't just go to the park like normal families. That must be hard. It's necessary. He turned to face her. I want him to have as much normalcy as possible. A childhood that isn't defined by violence and fear. That's why I'm working so hard to legitimize everything. So that by the time he's old enough to take over, there's something clean to inherit. Does it work that way? Can you just leave? I'm trying to find out. A bitter smile crossed his face. My father died when I was 23. Heart attack. Sudden. No preparation. I inherited an empire built on blood and compromise and debt. I've spent the last 12 years trying to turn it into something else. Some days I think I'm succeeding. Other days your son almost drowns in your pool because your security was focused on external threats. Dante's jaw clenched. Yes. That's not your fault. Isn't it? I chose this life. I chose to keep us in this world instead of taking Luca and running. Every consequence flows from that choice. Maya walked to where he stood, looking out at Miami sprawling below them. You can't protect him from everything. Accidents happen. Not in my world. In my world, accidents are failures, vulnerabilities, weaknesses that get exploited. That's a lonely way to live. Yes, it is. He looked at her, and for a moment the controlled mask slipped. She saw exhaustion underneath, fear, the weight of responsibility that never lifted. But it's the life I have. Maya understood that more than he probably realized. She'd spent 3 years making impossible choices, sacrificing everything for survival. Different circumstances, but the same calculation. Do what you have to do. Live with the consequences. The security detail, she said. When do they start officially? They started 3 hours ago, like I said. But Rico and James are waiting downstairs to introduce themselves properly. They're good men. Former military. Trained. They'll keep you safe. And if I don't want to be safe, if I want to just live my life, then they'll do it from a distance. But they'll be there. Dante's voice was firm. I won't compromise on your safety. Not after what you did for Luca. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could take care of herself. But the truth was, she had no idea how to handle this new reality. No training for navigating Mafia politics, territorial disputes, or rival families who might see her as leverage. Okay, she said. Introduce me to my shadows. Dante's relief was visible. He made a call, and 2 minutes later, 2 men entered the office. Both were in their 30s, built like they spent serious time in the gym, with the same controlled competence she'd seen in all of Dante's people. Rico Martinez, the first one said, offering his hand. Latino, maybe 6'2", with a handshake that was firm but not crushing. I'll be taking the day shift. James Porter, the second added. African American, slightly shorter but broader, with kind eyes that didn't match his military bearing. Night shift. We'll coordinate to make sure there's no gap in coverage. Coverage, Maya repeated. That sounds so official. It is official, Rico said seriously. Our job is to keep you safe. That means knowing your routines, identifying potential threats before they materialize, and being ready to intervene if necessary. Intervene how? However necessary, James said simply. But our goal is prevention. If we're doing our job right, you'll never be in a situation that requires intervention. And if I don't want you following me around, then we follow from a distance. Rico's expression was understanding. We get it. This is weird for you. We'll be as unobtrusive as possible. But Mr. Castellano's orders are clear. You're under protection until he determines the threat level has decreased to acceptable levels. And when will that be? Dante answered. When I'm satisfied that word has spread through appropriate channels that you're protected. When my rivals understand that touching you means war. A few weeks, maybe a month. A month of being followed everywhere. A month of being safe, Dante corrected. There's a difference. Maya looked at the two security men, then at Dante, then out at the city below. Somewhere down there, people were living normal lives, working normal jobs, dealing with normal problems like rent and car repairs and what to have for dinner. She wasn't one of those people anymore. Fine, she said. But I'm still working my shifts at Stefano's. I don't care if it makes your security complicated. Already arranged, Dante said. I spoke with your manager this morning. You're moving to telephone orders only. No more deliveries. You can't just, I did. Your pay stays the same. Actually, it's going up. Consider it hazard pay. He held up a hand before she could protest. This isn't negotiable. I won't have you driving around Miami alone at night when there are people who might want to use you against me. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. There's a difference. Yeah, you said that already. Maya felt anger rising, hot and clean. But from where I'm standing, it looks the same. You're controlling my movements, my job, my life, all because I made the mistake of saving your son. It wasn't a mistake. Dante's voice dropped into something dangerous. It was the best thing anyone's done for me in years, and I will not apologize for keeping you safe. They stared at each other, tension crackling between them. Rico and James had gone very still, like they'd learned to be invisible when their boss's temper flared. Finally, Maya broke the stare. I need air. James will take you, alone. I need to be alone. That's not possible right now. Then make it possible. The words came out sharper than she intended. I just found out my entire life has changed because I did the right thing. I found out there are people who want to hurt me for reasons that have nothing to do with who I am. I found out I'm stuck with bodyguards and security upgrades and a 7-year-old kid who calls me by my first name like we're friends. Her voice cracked slightly. I need 5 minutes to process this without someone watching me. Dante studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded to Rico and James. Wait in the elevator bay. Give her the office. They left without argument. The door closed behind them, and suddenly it was just Maya and Dante in 15 floors of expensive real estate and complicated consequences. I'm sorry, Dante said quietly. I know this isn't what you signed up for. I didn't sign up for anything. I just jumped in a pool. And changed everything. He moved closer, and Maya forced herself not to step back. I meant what I said before. You're not a prisoner. You're not bait. You're someone who matters to my son, which makes you matter to me, and I protect what matters. Even if they don't want protection? Especially then. A hint of dark humor crossed his face. The people who need protection most are usually the ones who refuse to ask for it. Maya felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back furiously. She would not cry in front of this man, would not show weakness in front of someone who'd probably eat weakness for breakfast. But Dante saw it anyway. His expression softened, and he did something unexpected. He reached out and touched her shoulder, not grabbing, not restraining, just contact, connection. It's going to be okay, he said. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but I promise you, Maya, I will keep you safe, and when this is over, when the threat has passed, you can go back to your life. I won't hold you. You say that like it's certain, because it is. His certainty was absolute. I always pay my debts, and I always keep my promises. Those are the only rules that matter in my world. Maya looked up at him. Dante Castellano, Mafia boss, protector, father. A man who commanded an empire but couldn't control whether his son was safe in his own pool. A man trying to build something clean from something dirty and not sure if it was possible. She saw the exhaustion in his eyes. The weight. The loneliness of being responsible for everything and everyone. Okay, she said finally. I'll accept your protection, but on my terms. I need autonomy within the structure. I need to feel like I'm still living my life, not just existing inside yours. Agreed. And you have to tell me the truth. About threats. About what's happening. About what I'm actually involved in. Within reason. No. Complete honesty or this doesn't work. You want me to trust you with my safety? Then trust me with information. Dante considered this. The calculation was visible in his eyes. Then he nodded. Complete honesty. You have my word. And Luca? What about him? He asked me to visit again. I said yes. I'm not doing that if it's going to hurt him when I leave. Kids get attached. If this is temporary, if I'm just going to disappear from his life in a month, then I won't do that to him. Something complex crossed Dante's face. You're right. He does get attached. He's had 3 nannies quit in the past 2 years because they couldn't handle the security, the restrictions, the reality of our life. It devastates him every time. Then maybe I shouldn't. No. The word was firm. He needs you. He's been asking about you all morning, worried about whether you're okay, whether you were scared, whether you got in trouble for helping him. He needs to know there are still good people in the world, people who help without expecting anything in return. I'm not that good. You're good enough. Dante's hand was still on her shoulder, warm through her shirt, and I think you need him too. I saw your face when he hugged you. You lit up. Maya wanted to deny it. But he was right. Something about Luca's uncomplicated affection, his trust, his joy, it filled a hole she hadn't realized was there. Okay, she whispered. I'll visit, but you have to promise me that when this is over, if I need to step back for his sake, you'll let me. I promise. They stood like that for a moment, his hand on her shoulder, her eyes searching his face for signs of deception or manipulation. She found none, just exhaustion and determination and something else, something that looked almost like hope. I should go, Maya said finally. I need to call Mrs. Chen about the rent, and probably eat something. I haven't had food since yesterday. Dante released her shoulder and pulled out his phone. I'll have lunch brought up. You shouldn't eat alone. I always eat alone. Not anymore. He made a call, spoke in rapid Italian, and hung up. 20 minutes. Italian food from a restaurant I own. The chef's excellent. Of course you own a restaurant. 3 actually. And a hotel. And about 40 commercial properties throughout Miami. He said it without bragging. Just stating facts. Legitimate businesses that generate legitimate income. Part of the transition. How's that going? Slowly, painfully, but forward. He gestured toward the seating area. Sit. We can eat, and you can ask me questions. Complete honesty, remember? Maya sat, and Dante sat across from her. Within minutes, Rico appeared with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. He poured without speaking and disappeared again. Your people are well trained, Maya observed. They're survivors. Most of them came from situations where attention meant danger. They learned to be invisible. Dante sipped his wine. But they're loyal. That's the most important thing. Loyal to you or to the paycheck? Both. I pay well. But I also protect them. Give them purpose. A sense of belonging. He met her eyes over the rim of his glass. That's what most people want, isn't it? To belong somewhere. To matter to someone. The words hit closer to home than Maya wanted to admit. She'd been alone since aging out of foster care at 18. 3 years of surviving on her own, building a life from nothing, learning that the only person you could count on was yourself. But sitting here, in this impossible office, talking to this dangerous man, she felt something shift. A possibility she hadn't considered. That maybe belonging wasn't weakness. Maybe letting someone protect you wasn't surrender. Maybe it was. Just practical. Tell me about Marco Vega, she said, changing the subject before her thoughts could wander further into dangerous territory. You said he's pressuring you. Dante's expression hardened. Marco runs the Vega cartel. He controls most of the cocaine traffic between Colombia and the East Coast. He wants to use our ports and our distribution networks to move his product. And you refused. I refused because bringing drugs through our infrastructure exposes us to federal prosecution. I'm trying to legitimize. Working with Marco undoes years of careful separation from that side of the business. So, what does he do when you refuse? He waits, watches, looks for leverage. Dante's voice was grim. And now he has it. Or he thinks he does. You? The word settled over Maya like a weight. He'd really come after me? If he thinks it would work. If he thinks taking you would force my hand. If he thinks hurting you would send a message about what happens when people refuse him. Dante leaned forward. That's why the security is so important. Why I need you to take this seriously. I am taking it seriously. I just don't know how to live like this. You learn. Same as everything else, one day at a time. Food arrived, then Rico and James carrying trays laden with pasta and bread and salad. The smell was incredible, and Maya realized she was starving. She hadn't eaten since the pizza she'd grabbed during her shift yesterday, before everything changed. They ate in comfortable silence, the tension from earlier dissipating. The pasta was perfect, the sauce rich and complex, the bread warm and crusty. Food you paid $30 a plate for in restaurants, served casually in an office overlooking Miami. This is good, Maya said around a mouthful. Angelo's been my chef for 15 years. He could work anywhere. He chooses to work for me. Dante refilled her wine glass. Loyalty, or fear. Sometimes they're the same thing, but with Angelo, it's respect. I protected his daughter when she was in trouble. He remembers. Protected her from what? An abusive boyfriend who didn't understand what no meant. I had a conversation with him. He understood afterward. The way Dante said it made Maya's skin prickle. A conversation. A very pointed conversation. He left town shortly after. Dante's expression was hard. I don't tolerate violence against women or children. That's a line I don't cross and don't allow others to cross. Anyone who works for me knows that. But you do tolerate other kinds of violence. Yes. He didn't sugarcoat it. I live in a violent world. I protect my interests violently when necessary, but there are rules, lines. Some things are off limits. Like what? Civilians, families, anyone not involved in the life. He looked at her steadily. You're a civilian, Maya. That means you're off limits by the rules we all operate under. But not everyone follows the rules. That's the problem. Maya absorbed this, trying to reconcile the man across from her. He was dangerous, clearly. Controlled violence wrapped in expensive suits, but there was honor in it somehow. Rules that mattered, even in a world without law. I want to understand, she said. All of it. How this works, why people follow you, what makes someone powerful in this world. Dante studied her face. Why? Because if I'm going to survive this, I need to understand the rules, need to know who's dangerous and why, need to be able to protect myself instead of just relying on your men. You think you can protect yourself against cartel enforcers? No, but I can be smart. I can be careful. I can learn to see threats coming. She held his gaze. Teach me. For a long moment, Dante said nothing. Then slowly, he smiled. A real smile, not the controlled expressions he'd shown her before. It transformed his face, made him look younger, almost approachable. Okay, he said. I'll teach you, but you have to promise to take it seriously. To do exactly what I say when I say it, because this isn't theoretical, Maya. This is life and death. I promise. Then we start tomorrow, 10 a.m. Rico will bring you here. We'll go over everything you need to know. He raised his wine glass. To education. Maya clinked her glass against his. To survival. They finished the meal, and Dante walked her to the elevator. Rico and James were waiting, professional and distant. Maya wondered what they thought of all this. Their boss protecting some random pizza delivery girl because she saved his kid. It had to seem excessive, but they said nothing, just nodded respectfully and flanked her as they rode down to the parking garage. Her Honda was waiting, looking even more pathetic surrounded by Mercedes and BMWs, and one Maserati that probably cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. We'll follow you home, Rico said. Get you settled. Then James will take over tonight. This is really happening. Yes, ma'am. Maya climbed into her car, started the engine on the second try, and pulled out of the garage. In her rearview mirror, she saw a black sedan fall into position, 2 cars back, her shadows, her protection, her new reality. She drove home through late afternoon traffic, the sun painting Miami in shades of gold. Everything looked the same as yesterday. Same buildings, same streets, same people going about their normal lives. But Maya's world had transformed completely, and she had no idea if she'd survive the change. The next 3 weeks fell into a rhythm that felt both surreal and oddly normal. Maya woke each morning to find James waiting in a car outside her building. He'd nod, sip his coffee, and follow her through her day at a discreet distance. When her shift at Stefano's ended telephone orders only, like Dante had mandated, Rico would be waiting to escort her home, or to wherever she needed to go. Twice a week, she visited Luca. The boy had become a bright spot in her increasingly complicated life. He'd show her his schoolwork, his drawings, the elaborate Lego constructions he built with Sophia's patient help. He'd curl against her side while they watched movies, his small hand finding hers automatically. And Dante was always there, watching from doorways, joining them for dinner, teaching Luca chess, while Maya pretended not to notice the way the boy looked at his father with absolute worship. On her 4th visit, Luca fell asleep against her shoulder halfway through a cartoon movie about talking fish. His breathing went soft and even, his weight warm and trusting. He does that, Dante said quietly from across the room, falls asleep like someone flipped a switch. He feels safe. Maya adjusted carefully, not wanting to wake him. Because you're here. Dante stood, moving closer. He sleeps better after your visits. Sophia says he doesn't have the nightmares as often. Nightmares about the pool? About drowning? About the water? About being alone? Dante's voice was rough. He won't go near the pool now. Won't even look at it. I'm having it filled in next week. Maya looked up sharply. That's extreme. It almost killed him. Why would I keep it? Because removing it won't fix the fear. It'll just teach him that running away is the answer. She kept her voice low, conscious of the sleeping child. He needs to face it, gradually, with support, or the fear will just attach to something else. You sound like a psychologist. I sound like someone who aged out of foster care with untreated trauma. The words came out sharper than intended. Trust me, avoiding the thing that scares you doesn't make you less scared. It just makes you smaller. Dante studied her face with that intense assessment she'd grown accustomed to. What were you afraid of? Everything. Being abandoned again, being hurt again, never being enough for anyone to keep. Maya looked down at Luca's peaceful face. I'm still afraid of most of those things, but I learned to live alongside the fear instead of letting it control me. How? By doing the scary thing anyway. By proving to myself that I could survive it. She met his eyes. Don't fill in the pool, Dante. Help him learn to swim again instead. What if he can't? Then at least he'll know he tried. That's better than wondering forever. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. You're right. I'll talk to a child psychologist. Find someone who specializes in trauma recovery. Good. You're good with him. Dante sat on the arm of the couch, close enough that Maya could smell his cologne. Better than his nannies were. Better than I am sometimes. You're his father. That's different from being good with kids. Is it? Because most days I feel like I'm failing at both. The vulnerability in his voice surprised her. Dante Castellano, the man who commanded rooms and empires, admitting weakness. Maya shifted Luca's weight slightly, buying herself time to formulate a response. You're not failing, she said finally. You're scared. There's a difference. Failing would be giving up. You're just trying to protect him from a world that's legitimately dangerous. By surrounding him with armed guards and isolating him from normal childhood experiences. By keeping him alive. Maya's voice was firm. You do what you have to do with the circumstances you have. That's not failing. That's surviving. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's honest. She looked down at Luca again. He knows you love him. That's what matters. The rest, the security, the restrictions, he'll understand eventually. When he's old enough. Will he forgive me? For what? Protecting him? Loving him enough to make hard choices? Maya shook her head. There's nothing to forgive. Dante reached out and touched Luca's hair, his large hand gentle against the boy's head. His mother left when he was 2, said she couldn't handle the life, the danger, the restrictions. She wanted normal, and I couldn't give her that. I'm sorry. I'm not. Better she left than stayed and resented us. His voice hardened. But it means Luca's only known this life. Guards and walls and carefully controlled environments. I don't know if that's protecting him or damaging him. Maybe it's both. Maya adjusted as Luca shifted in his sleep. Maybe you can't separate protection from damage when the threat is real. Maybe you just do your best and hope it's enough. That's a bleak philosophy. It's a realistic one. They sat in comfortable silence, Luca sleeping between them, until Sophia appeared to carry the boy to bed. Dante lifted him carefully, and Luca's arms wrapped around his father's neck automatically, even in sleep. The trust in that gesture was absolute. When Dante returned, he found Maya staring out the window at Miami's nighttime sprawl. The city glittered below, all lights and movement and life continuing obliviously. "You've been doing well with the security," Dante said, coming to stand beside her. "Rico says you follow protocols without complaint. James says you're aware of your surroundings now, checking mirrors, noting exit routes. You told me to take it seriously. I'm taking it seriously. I also told you I'd teach you about this world. We've been focused on physical security, but you should understand the political landscape too." He pulled out his phone, opened a file. These are the major players in South Florida organized crime. For the next hour, Dante walked her through a web of families, territories, and alliances that made her head spin. The Morettis in New York had 3 capos operating in Miami. The Vega cartel controlled most drug traffic but stayed out of other enterprises. A dozen smaller operations fought over scraps, trying to avoid notice from the bigger fish. "Where do you fit?" Maya asked. "We're the biggest fish. My family's been here longest, has the deepest roots, controls the most valuable territory. Everyone else operates with our permission, whether explicit or implicit." That sounds like a lot of pressure. It is, but it's also power. As long as I maintain that position, no one moves against me directly. The cost is too high. But they probe for weakness. Constantly. Dante's expression was grim. "That's why your security is so important. Why I reacted so strongly when Luca almost drowned. Any sign of vulnerability gets exploited. Has anyone tried? In the past 3 weeks? There have been inquiries, careful ones. People asking questions about the woman who saved my son. Whether you're important to me, whether you're leverage." He met her eyes. "So far, the security detail has been enough to signal that you're under protection. But that could change." "Change how?" "If someone gets desperate enough or bold enough to test whether I'm serious about protecting you." Dante's voice dropped lower. "Marco Vega is losing territory to a Colombian rival. He needs to expand, and he needs our infrastructure to do it. He'll make a move soon. Against you? Against whatever vulnerability he can find. That's how this works. You probe until you find a weak point, then you exploit it." Maya absorbed this, her earlier sense of security crumbling. "So I'm still in danger. You were never not in danger. The security just makes it more controlled danger." Dante touched her arm, drawing her attention. "But I need you to understand something. If Marco or anyone else makes a move against you, the response will be immediate and overwhelming. I protect what's mine. I'm not yours." "Yes, you are." The certainty in his voice was absolute. "You saved my son. That creates a bond whether you accept it or not. In my world, that bond is sacred. It means I will burn down anyone who threatens you." The intensity of his words made Maya's breath catch. "That's a lot of responsibility." "It's not responsibility, it's obligation. There's a difference." His hand was still on her arm, warm through her sleeve. "But it's also choice. I choose to protect you. I choose to keep you safe. Not because I have to, because I want to." "Why?" "Because you dove into a pool to save a child you'd never met. Because you're brave and honest and you don't flinch from hard truths. Because Luca lights up when you walk into a room. Because He stopped, seeming to weigh his next words. "Because I look forward to your visits, to talking with you, to watching you color with my son and teach him things I can't." Maya's heart was beating too fast. This was dangerous territory, more dangerous than cartel threats or territorial disputes. This was personal, complicated, the kind of thing that changed everything. "Dante, His phone rang, cutting through the moment. He answered with visible frustration, his voice sharp. "What?" Maya watched his expression change from annoyed to focused to coldly furious in the span of seconds. He spoke in rapid Italian, the words harsh and commanding. When he hung up, his face was a mask of controlled violence. "What happened?" Maya asked. "Someone took a shot at Rico." Dante was already moving, grabbing his jacket. "Outside your apartment building. His fine vest caught it, but the message is clear." "What message?" "That you're not as protected as I thought. That someone's bold enough to challenge me directly." He turned to face her, and Maya saw the predator underneath the businessman. "You're not going back to your apartment. You're staying here tonight." "Dante, I can't just..." "That wasn't a request." His voice was steel. "Someone just tried to kill one of my men to send me a message. That means they know where you live. They know your routines. They're watching. So you stay here, in my home, behind my security, until I handle this. Handle it how? By finding out who took the shot and making it very clear what happens when someone threatens what's mine. He made a call, spoke quickly. James is already moving your essential items here. Sophia will set up the guest room. You'll have everything you need. For how long? Until it's safe. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Dante's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry, Maya. I know this isn't what you wanted, but I won't risk you. I can't. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to insist on her independence, her autonomy, her right to make her own choices. But someone had just shot at Rico. Because of her, because she'd saved a child and inadvertently made herself valuable to a man powerful enough to have enemies. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. Dante's relief was visible. He pulled her into a hug that surprised them both, brief but firm, his arms solid around her. Maya felt the strength in him, the controlled power, and something else. Warmth, care, the feeling of being protected rather than controlled. When he released her, his expression was determined. I need to handle this. Sophia will get you settled. Don't leave this floor. Don't answer the door. The security protocols are strict for a reason. Be careful. Always. He touched her face briefly, his hand warm against her cheek. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with finality. Sophia appeared moments later, maternal and efficient. Come, Mija. I'll show you the guest room. It has everything you need. The guest room was larger than Maya's entire apartment. King-sized bed with soft linens, private bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people, a sitting area with a couch and television, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, though Sophia immediately drew the curtains. Security, she explained at Maya's questioning look. No one needs to see inside. Does this happen often? People staying here for protection? Not often, but it happens. Sophia's expression was knowing. Mr. Castellano takes his obligations seriously. When he says someone is under his protection, he means it. How long have you worked for him? 15 years. Since before Luca was born. Sophia smiled fondly. I've watched him grow from a young man trying to fill his father's shoes into the man he is now. It hasn't been easy. What was he like? Before? Harder. Colder. More like his father, all business, no warmth. But Luca changed him. Forced him to be softer, at least at home. And now you're changing him again. Maya's head snapped up. I'm not changing anything. No? Sophia's smile was gentle. He smiles more when you're here. Relaxes in ways I haven't seen in years. And Luca, she shook her head. Luca hasn't been this happy since his mother left. You're good for them both. I'm just visiting, temporarily, until the threat passes. We'll see. Sophia patted her arm. Get some rest, Mija. Tomorrow will be complicated. After Sophia left, Maya stood at the window, looking out at the ocean despite the drawn curtains. She could hear it, the endless rhythm of waves against shore. Somewhere out there, Dante was handling the situation. She didn't want to think about what that meant. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Rico is fine, bruised but alive. I'm tracking down the shooter. Sleep well. You're safe here. Maya typed back. Be careful. The response was immediate. Always. She climbed into bed that was too soft, in a room that was too large, in a life that was too complicated. And despite everything, the danger, the fear, the uncertainty, Maya fell asleep feeling safer than she had in years. She woke to sunlight streaming through gaps in the curtains and the smell of coffee. The bedside clock read 8 a.m. Maya had slept nearly 10 hours, the most uninterrupted rest she'd had since the pool incident 3 weeks ago. Sophia had left clothes on the chair, jeans that fit perfectly, a soft cashmere sweater that probably cost more than her weekly paycheck, undergarments still in their packaging. Maya tried not to think about how Dante had known her sizes. She showered in the enormous bathroom, dressed in clothes that felt foreign against her skin, and emerged to find Luca waiting in the hallway. Maya, he launched himself at her legs, wrapping his arms around her knees. Papa said you're staying here now. Is that true? Are you going to live with us? Just visiting for a little while, bud. Maya knelt to his level. But yes, I'm here. Because someone tried to hurt Uncle Rico? Luca's face was serious, too adult for 7 years old. I heard Papa talking on the phone. He was really angry. Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements. Your dad's handling it. He always handles things. Luca took her hand. Come on. Sophia made pancakes, the good kind with chocolate chips. The kitchen was enormous, all marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. Sophia was at the stove, and the smell of coffee and pancakes filled the air. Luca dragged Maya to the table, where a place was already set for her. Mr. Castellano left early, Sophia said, sliding pancakes onto a plate. He said he'll be back this afternoon. He wants you to stay inside today. Inside the apartment or inside the building? Inside the floor. The security protocols are elevated. Sophia's expression was carefully neutral. It's temporary, just until the situation is resolved. Maya ate breakfast with Luca, chattering beside her about his upcoming science project, something involving volcanoes and baking soda, and tried not to think about what resolved meant in Dante's world. Around noon, her phone rang. Dante's name on the screen. "Are you okay?" she answered. "I'm fine. The situation is contained." His voice was clipped, professional. The shooter was a freelancer hired by the Vega cartel. We've sent a clear message about the consequences of targeting anyone under my protection. Maya didn't ask what that message was. She didn't want to know. When can I go home? Not yet. We need to ensure this was an isolated incident and not part of a larger operation. A pause. I'm sorry, Maya. I know this isn't what you wanted. None of this is what I wanted. But here we are. Here we are, he agreed quietly. I'll be back in a few hours. We need to talk. About what? About what happens next. About long-term security arrangements. About... He stopped. We'll talk when I get there. He hung up before she could press for details. Maya stared at her phone, unease settling in her stomach. What happened next? What did that even mean? Luca found her in the living room, curled up on the couch pretending to watch television. He climbed up beside her, pressing against her side like a small furnace. Are you sad? He asked. I'm a little worried. Not sad. Papa will fix it. He always fixes things. Such absolute faith. He's the strongest person in the world. He's pretty strong, Maya agreed. And he likes you, I can tell. Luca looked up at her with those amber eyes. He smiles different when you're here. Like he's happy but also scared. What do you mean scared? Like when I got out of the pool after the accident. Papa held me really tight and his hands were shaking. He was happy I was okay but scared I'd been hurt. He looks at you the same way sometimes. Maya's throat tightened. 7 years old and observant as hell. Your dad has a lot on his mind, bud. Because he has to protect everybody. Me and you and Sophia and all his men. Luca snuggled closer. It's a lot of work being in charge. Yeah, it is. They sat together, watching cartoons neither of them were really paying attention to, until Dante arrived home just after 3. He looked exhausted, his suit rumpled, his tie loosened. But his eyes were hard, determined. Luca, go work on your homework with Sophia, he said gently. But Maya just got here. Now please. This is the emotional climax and conclusion of a romance story about Maya, a delivery driver who rescued Luca, the son of Mafia boss Dante Castellano, from drowning. The rescue thrust Maya into Dante's dangerous world, making her a target for his enemies. The excerpt opens with Dante, urging Maya to move into his home permanently for her protection, after escalating threats from rival Marco Vega. Though hesitant about the rapid progression of their relationship, Maya agrees. Establishing boundaries she'll work, maintain her independence, and they'll proceed slowly. Their first tentative kiss marks a turning point, as they begin forming an unconventional family with Luca. Over the following weeks, Maya adapts to her new reality. She takes a management position at Dante's restaurant, learns the protocols of his dangerous world, and grows closer to both father and son. The fragile peace shatters when Vega orchestrates an attack on their home. Dante responds with calculated brutality, systematically dismantling Vega's organization overnight, demonstrating the lengths he'll go to protect his family. The aftermath forces honest conversations. Dante declares Maya essential to his happiness, not just Luca's, and asks her to stay permanently as his partner rather than merely someone under his protection. Maya, recognizing she's found genuine belonging after a lifetime of searching, agrees to build a life with them, despite the dangers. The epilogue jumps 6 months forward to their beach house. Luca has overcome his fear of water through therapy. Dante has legitimized his business empire, divesting from criminal enterprises. Maya wears an engagement ring, and their autumn wedding is planned. She reflects that while she initially saved Luca's life, the rescue ultimately saved her own. giving her the family, home, and purpose she'd always lacked. The story emphasizes themes of chosen family, redemption, courage in the face of danger, and finding belonging in unexpected places. What began as a life-saving impulse evolved into profound love and lasting commitment, proving that sometimes the scariest choices lead to the most meaningful transformations. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on this areas. On your screen now, I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.